you're out here every Saturday. Everyone out on D Live on Rumble, Roku, and X. I am 80s on Rumble. I do archive my show. Go sign up for my channel on Rumble, 80s And I'm on X as the number 8, EZ Aaron. And now I hear Deb.
Hey, Erin.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm kind of exhausted now. Trying to boil down everything that happened this week into a show was like a real challenge. And then to sit there and keep my head straight and do it. They're killing me. Are we ever going to have a slow news week, Deb?
I don't know. I really don't. It's like, yeah, I've said it over and over. There's just so much. It's like pick and choose. What do you want to cover this day? I mean, did you get a chance to cover about the alligator Alcatraz in
No, I didn't get to
Florida?
any. I didn't get to my ice folder at all.
Mm, that ought to be fun. I mean, they're supposed to be open for business come Tuesday, so I think there's.
Man, I would not want to stay there. I can't stand hot and sticky at all.
What you know? Was it who's that? The Abrego that they've been fighting so hard for, that the Supreme Court or whoever said that the judge or whatever. I can't. I just caught the tail end of it. I know that he's going to back to where he belongs, or they're going to put him in. I wonder if he's going to be the first visitor or the first resident. I call him quote unquote resident in Alligator Alcatraz. You know, since he's got to be housed somewhere until he can be deported again because of these stupid judges.
Right. I saw somewhere that his judge, quote unquote, won by getting him put back in jail for a longer period of time. It's like, I don't know, man. I guess, he wants to be in American jail. Okay, whatever.
Well,
I mean, that guy's a Fed or something, man. Why are they so focused on that guy?
yeah.
He's like human trafficking and all this weird connections and weird stuff going on. I think the guy's a Fed. I mean, why did they bring him? It's just in bananas.
Right? I agree. I mean, there's something going on that we don't know about. I mean, or so we'll see. But yeah, it's crazy. I caught your tail end about the. How did this guy get nominated again? I mean, I heard that only 30% of New York even went out and voted. So how did this guy get nominated again? I mean, people are. You know what I find odd is everybody acts like it's a done deal. I mean, the media is like, he's going to be the next mayor. He's going to be the next mayor. He's. I mean, they're already saying he's. It's almost like they're conditioning everybody to believe he's the mayor already. Have
That's
you?
because the Democrat always wins. But the thing is, with this ranked choice voting, um, I mean, he won probably because of the ranked choice voting. If you coach everyone who to put as your first, second, third, fourth, I don't know how many choices they had, then like if you're smart enough to figure out, you put the guy that you're trying to make win as first, and then make everybody choose the same second choice, but the person that you pick as a second choice is not going to have very many votes as a first choice. In other words, a loser that no one's heard of. And the way the ranked choice voting works, then you basically win. As long as the person people put as the second isn't a good candidate, whoever like won in the first round just wins, basically, is what it comes down to.
Well, we need.
It's a way to split the vote a million ways. And if you get enough people to vote with the same first, second, third, and fourth for your candidate, then it's hard to explain, but because whoever gets knocked out, the people who voted for them, then their points are added on to the candidate that got knocked out. And then they do like a second round. And there's no way you could do it by hand. There's no way you can audit it. But Like if you pre-print how you want, if you're a candidate in ranked choice voting, the way you win is get a mathematician to tell everyone who to put as the second choice. Then you print off a cheat sheet and you go pay everyone or whatever to just go fill in the circles of the cheat sheet the way your cheat sheet shows. And because you have a group of people all picking a loser as the second choice, you win. Like
Sounds.
that's what they did to Sarah Palin, who
Mhm.
ran in the primary first ranked choice voting election in Alaska. They picked a nobody as the second choice. And then everyone who voted for Sarah didn't know it's a game and were just putting Sarah's name down and then leaving the rest blank. And that's why she lost.
Sounds complicated.
But she could have had more votes than all of it. It's just that's not the way the game's played in ranked choice voting.
And
But
unfortunately,
she can't audit the vote. So if you can't audit the vote, you don't even know if you quote unquote won under normal human circumstances.
we got the 10th commandment, 10th amendment, where everybody, every state has their own way of doing things, unless we make voting on state level a federal level. It's just.
Right. They can't do anything about the state level, but I think we should do something about federal elections. If they just define a federal election as, and then you just write the definition of, one voter, one ballot, one choice for the winner, like define it, and that's what that equals a federal election, then in theory you could force states to make if they want to keep ranked choice voting, they could do that in primaries, which really hurts. But at least in
Mm-hmm.
the general, they would have to go back to normal voting, which I think I'm not even sure. States might do that anyway, but I'm not quite sure. But if that's your primary, man, it's a math game. Hire a mathematician to figure out who to put as your second choice.
Gosh. Well, I agree with you. I mean, people shouldn't fluff this off. This is their blueprint. This is what they do. They get this whole move. It's a movement. You were talking about it just reminds me, Joseph McCarthy. This is an invasion, everyone. This is an invasion through, and I said through stealth in chat. I said
Yes.
it's an invasion through stealth because they come into your area. It's like a gang. Again, I mean, I'm going to repeat myself because if you go back to my Rumble and you see Bill Federer, because I played a video of him. He explained. I thought he explained it so well. Now, for me to try to rehash it and explain it again, but that's what they do. It's like a gangs. They go into a neighborhood. They, you know, they kind of terrorize you, and you don't speak up. If you do try to speak up, you are basically, someone knocks on your door and they scare you to death. People leave because it's not safe, and then they take over the territory. And you take that method and you add it like thousands and thousands of times, and guess what? You've got a takeover. That's how some of these countries over in the Middle East have been taken over in the last 100 years or more.
Yes, and that's the way that the takeover happened in the Middle Ages too. You'd let a few communities of different religions in there, but Islam is focused on jihad. The Christians weren't, and neither were the Zoroastrians and all these, I don't even know, the Manas or whatever they were. And it happens. Like they just went, the Middle East was completely Christian and just place by place by place. No one raised a sword in the beginning. They just stealthily took over.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. And then you have people that are like sitting around saying, oh, the Democrats did this. So the Democrats aren't doing any of this. The Democrats are the tool, the election apparatus that's being used by Islamo-fascists and other people who are trying to take over our country. I mean, I don't think that Chucky Schumer or any of these people are at all in charge of or even capable of understanding what's happening. I just don't think they are.
I don't know if it's that they don't understand it. They just probably don't care as long as they get their Benjamins in their pocket. You know, you could be right, but it just, I don't know. To be so well, and I, in a way, I kind of feel for some of these people because so many people just don't get it. It's we've got to be nice. We got to be nice to everyone. And I'm going to go back to something Bill Feeder said when he was on with Pam a few years ago, and that's because sometimes someone will say something and they'll just stick with me. And he says there are cultures out there that when you are nice to them, in their minds, that gives them permission to conquer you. So you basically said because you're being so nice and passive that it's okay to be conquered. If you don't stand up for yourself, it's like standing up to a bully. If you don't stand up, they're just gonna mow you down. So you got to be careful. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, the Democrats for years and years were into coalition building. And so, in order to build up a big enough coalition to win elections, they would go, like idiots, like when I was in Chicago, like idiot suburban women would cover their hair and like Democrats, cover their hair with a scarf, Islamic centers to get pander for votes or whatever, and then leave out of there and take the covering off their hair and stuff. And to them, it was just coalition building. They'd go see SEIU, who's kind of radical. They'd go see the local uh, DSA, Democratic Socialists for America. They'd go see the local, all these radical groups, commie groups and different things, and run all around coalition building just to get the number of votes that they needed. But what they never would think about is that you are letting literal communist snakes and, you know, bizarro, wackadoodle, foreign agent, sleeper cell types like freaking into your big tent, man. I mean, when is a big tent too big? It's like that poem with the snake that Trump made up.
Mm-hmm.
At some point the big tent is too big. You're letting too many monsters into the tent and you can't control them anymore. That's where I think the Democrat Party is. They've made a coalition where they have to pander to people who are literally trying to destroy everything even they stand for.
Yeah. Well, you think about Johnson, what he said. Remember the Civil Rights Act, and Johnson, actually fought the Democrats tooth and nail, and Johnson was one of the biggest racists there is, and yet the only reason why he got the Democrats to even agree to the Civil Rights Act is a way of convincing a certain group of people that hey, we're for you instead of the truth is we want to enslave you. So they just
Right. I mean, the other side of it is that the Republicans never believed in coalition building. All they believed in was the smallest possible tent. And they spend, when you're in Republican circles, they spend a lot of time demonizing other Republicans in these bizarro purity tests. Well, they're not really a conservative. People that like for a long time, like East Indian people would show up, like because they're very kind of Chamber of Commerce business people types, and try to be a part of the Republican Party. and they're, we're not conservative enough. It's like, so you have to have a balance, and Trump really did a good balance. He got like the best of the old Democrat coalition, the auto workers and Catholics. Catholics are the best of the old Democrat Party, and Catholics are very different than many other Christian evangelical or other Christian groups because Catholics believe that you get, like salvation through your actions. So they're kind of like the Orthodox Church in that Catholics believe that you earn you have to like they're not you have to earn your points or whatever.
Yeah.
In other words, Catholics do stuff, whereas a lot of evangelicals are more into prophecy where you really aren't out, for example, feeding the poor. And, Catholics are the ones in the city who feed the poor, educate the children, do scholarship drives, just constant action, action, action in the community because that's what their mission is. For many Catholics, that's the mission of their church. Sort of the Greek Orthodox are very much like that too, and they are just a natural fit for the Democrat Party, which in theory was all about the poor and the huddled masses and so on and so forth. And that's why Catholics are Democrats and not so much anymore. Trump was like, look, you don't want to be a part of the action over there with Islamo fascists and communists. Those people are going to kill you in the end.
Right.
And some of them listen and they're part of the Trump coalition now, a lot of Catholics. So really the only Catholic vote that Republicans got was the pro-life vote. But for some Catholics, the pro-life thing is their thing, but not enough to be their single issue voting card. And so, a lot of people like in the Chicago Tea Party were Catholics. It was really just about like pro-life and stuff like that. And they were kind of like, why aren't you guys working on that? And it's like, well, we're the Republican Party. We have a big tent. We don't want to offend anyone. You just have to you're not conservative enough. You're a Catholic. You're not the right kind of conservative. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
the heck? We need to all be united against people who are trying to take this country down. Look what's happening, like in Ireland. Look what's happening in England. Look what's happening everywhere. Everyone should unite against that who wants to save this country.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. But you got these. I'm trying to be nice, but it's hard to be nice when people just refuse to get it. They just keep putting their head in the sand. They just, oh, but they're nice people. They're nice people. No, 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 no. They want to conquer you. That's the thing, and that's the whole thing about Islam. Islam's allowed sits there and tells you they can lie to you to your face and then have that knife to stab you in the back. That's the kind of ideology you're looking at. Face you while they stab you in the back. So, and people just, it's like people need to get
I
some
mean, for
street
me
smart.
personally, I always bring it up. I've had plenty of really close Muslim friends, especially people from Albania. Okay. Really good friends of mine, people I was very close to, people I work with, and that not all Muslims are the same, but people who are in the political Islam and are, you know, uh, on the radical end of things, that's a different story.
Right.
There's plenty of Muslims from India, Albania, even the Middle East they understand that when you become a citizen here, that the Sharia law thing is not your supreme law anymore. They completely understand that. They're kind of completely different mindset than these crazy people. And this guy's a 12er.
Yeah.
So it's pretty likely that he believes in like complete insanity and bombs and craziness and stuff to bring about the Mahdi to come out of the well, the 12th prophet. And so that's like an end time prophecy. And
Mm-hmm.
those are the ones that with the that can get really, really like insane radical. Just the same thing as Sabbatean Jews and these crazy Christian sects who are trying to bring about the beginning of end time prophecy. And the Twelvers believe in the end, actually, that their prophet, the Mahdi, and Jesus will have like a day of judgment, kind of like, biblical end times. But the problem is after that phase, there's like a freaking 13th level boss fight, and Jesus loses. See, that's the problem. So
Yeah.
you're all good until the boss fight at the end. And then it goes very bad for the Christian. So, this is the mindset there. you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's. Uh,
I can't remember who it was. Was it a John? I'll never be able to. Who was the world leader who was a twelver? I can't. I think he was John. I mean, I can't even say it. He was like a leader in the Middle East forever. I can't even remember where from. But he was a twelver. And everyone was like, whoa, super nervous about this guy. I think he got kicked out in like the early 2000s. Oh, I can picture him in my eyes. He's from Iraq, maybe? Or was it not Iran? It was maybe Iraq, but it wasn't Saddam Hussein. Oh, I forget. Maybe it was in Afghanistan. Who was the 12er? Maybe Grok. No, sorry, I'm gonna ask Grok.
I really, I excuse me, I didn't know anything about this, and I just saw a video just literally just a couple of hours ago explaining the whole 12er in prophetic times of Islam and how that ties in with what's happening and how the I can't remember how he talked about how Hamas, Hezbollah, and what's the other group that is that those groups are Iran's army basically and going in and wiping. So that was the first time I've never really learned anything, knew any of that. So it was interesting. Some Ahmadinejad, is that how you pronounce it? Ahmadinejad. Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? Women are worried about losing their rights under President Trump, yet they embrace Sharia law. Candidates who treat women as possessions. I mean, how about these men who are? I mean, I'm sorry, but United States, there should never be 9-year-olds being allowed to marry these 30 or 40-year-old men. 12-year-olds should not be marrying 30, 40-year-old men. And so it's just, yeah, yeah. And,
I kind of draw the line there a little bit because I don't think that America, like, remember when Barbara Bush, like a bunch of and Hillary Clinton and different people have tried to go into the Middle East and tell and tell Islamic clerics and stuff that they can't treat women as property or prevent them from driving and marry young girls and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know. That makes me a little nervous meddling in other people's
yeah, but
culture or whatever. I think it's horrible, don't get me wrong, but like what I just kind of I always thought that was weird. It just seemed like an excuse to send boatloads of US aid over to those countries to be squandered and pocketed or something.
No,
I'm like,
but
why are you talking about this, you whack jobs? These people aren't going to become Americans over there. I mean, that's their culture for thousands of years. You're going to send boatloads of money over there, and like, what's up with that?
no, but it's happening here in the United States, though. That's the thing. It happens in the
Yeah,
United
well, it's against
States.
our laws.
It should be, but you know, you got your politicians that are allowing it to happen.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, what's his name? Steve Bannon's buddy. Uh, he read those the National Pulse. Anyway, he wrote a book called No Go Zones. Because he was brought up Muslim, and when he recognized what was happening to Britain and what the plan was, he like got out of that. Qassam, yeah, Raheem Qassan. He got invited to like a Muslim youth center or something, and he heard of their plans for Britain. And I guess he must have been kind of naive or from a pretty moderate family or whatever, because he was shocked. And it totally changed him. And then he went on to campaign with Nigel Farage. He was, big behind just the whole populist movement or whatever, but he wrote a book called No Go Zones. And I remember when it was like the one thing you could get banned on the internet, like before COVID and all that, is if you talked about no go zones. And it's still, um, the whole Islamic thing is you really get in trouble talking about it. I remember like one of the speakers that used to go around to the tea parties. I can't think of his name, but he's a well-known Islamic expert, and he would go book appointments with police stations to give a speech in the police station in regions of the country that had a significant Islamic population, just to train them on the religion and the culture and everything. So, where I lived, we had a massive Islamic population because they opened a Islamic center in our town in a former school building. The people, the real estate agents were thrilled because someone bought this old school. Well, it ruined the town. And um, so this, like, when this guy would go to speak at the police stations, that CARE would show up with millions of like just ruin all the police's lives, ruin the police, the mayor, everyone. And by the time this guy would show up to do his event, the mayor and the police station would um have given up on the event, not allow him to show up. And it happened over and over and over again. He was supposed to speak to the mayor and everyone in our town. Well, that got canceled because CARE like spent months plotting against our town. And then, like I said, right as I was leaving, I forget what year it was, but they had campaign signs around, and they're all Islamic names: librarian, human rights board, or all these lower level things. And they had Islamic names as the candidates. And we were like, yep. And anyone who tried to stop it got run out of town.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm not surprised. It's not surprising.
And like I said, I caught young, seemingly Middle Eastern men taking pictures of all the transformer boxes and electrical stuff along sort of the main highway that goes past our town. And I told the police about it, and they told me I needed sensitivity training.
Yeah, those sensitive trading seminars because you can't hurt somebody else's feeling because you don't agree with what their thought process was, or
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, do you know anyone that goes on Facebook and like says, "Oh, it's my birthday. Look at the pictures of the power lines. Aren't they pretty?" I mean, why else would you be taking pictures of that? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, remember RBG wanted to lower the age of consent to 12 years old. Wonder why? You know.
I think she was Sabbatean, but that I have, how do you prove that?
So, it. I don't know. I'm reading chat, so it's kind of like okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess what I can say is that there are some people, like the people in chat, uh, and other people who've studied this topic, and hopefully a lot of people out in New York. I mean, New York's where 9/11 happened, which whatever it is that actually happened, the people were led to believe it was radical Islamic attack. And somehow this happens. Yeah, I'm just not buying that. I'm just not. There's
Yeah.
something happened with that ranked choice voting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're not able to use the ballots and they're using the machines, there you go. That's just one tool that they use. But what can you say? I mean, people need to start getting a clue, and like we were saying, go and fight for it. Fight for your city. Fight for your state. Because all it takes is one. Look what's happening now in Texas. I mean, I just saw that Abbott has signed something that basically says that I can't remember all the countries: Russia, China, I think Syria. No one from foreign countries can now own land in Texas. But what is he doing about the Epic City? What is he doing about some of these cities that are already popping up in Texas? So I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It's an exploit. It's like the exploit of the United States is the fact that people have religious freedom. It's very hard to get around it, you know. That's why even though I don't think our attorney general here in Oklahoma is good, and he's going to be running for governor because we have term limits, which is a terrible thing. And Stitt, who's not great but not the worst, is term limited out. Now this Gunter whatever guy is going to win. Do Gunter Drummond, and we have this Walters running around about, oh, we're going to have religion in the schools. And this Gunter guy, as bad as he is, he's bringing up a really good point. How long is it before we're going to have Church of Satan charter schools or Church of Satan's going to come in and want to put
But
mandatory religious books in the library?
they already do
So,
that though. There are already
right,
places
but
that they're
they're going
doing
to,
that.
it's official policy here in Oklahoma that we have religion in the schools. So that means that any religion, you just wait and see what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to work their way around that. I understand that's a Christian thing here, but they're not going to get around it. And it's going to become a free for all with the Muslims and you name it, all getting into this religious charter school thing. So, on the surface, when someone says they're against religious charter schools, that seems bad. But in reality, I mean, you can say anything's a religion.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's part of the problem. What's your definition of religion?
Right. Oklahoma wants Christian history, and we're getting these Bibles with it's the Trump Bible, which I bought one. They're very beautiful. That God Bless America Bible. Uh, they're very nice. And they're supposed to be giving instruction from that with the US Constitution's in there and Declaration of Independence is in there, etc., and the Pledge of Allegiance, and then it's a Bible. And it's very nice, and I get it, but man, I don't know. It's dangerous territory. Maybe you can get away with it here, but it is treading into some dangerous waters. because, the pillars of Islam are a thing too, and it's a religious thing that's been around for a long time. uh, so I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. I don't know what to tell you. So, I mean,
Yeah,
but
but it's like an Achilles heel. The religious freedom thing here is sort of Achilles heel that some people use as an exploit
yeah,
and use it to take us down.
yep. Well, that's like you saw that the court, the Supreme Court on the LGBTQ issue with the parents can take their kids. They don't have to, parents, basically giving rights to the parents. Uh, they don't have to. How, I know I'm going to explain this wrong or say it wrong. That if a school is having a LGBTQ function, the parents don't have to let their child go to school that day or whatever. I mean, it's it's a fight. It's people don't understand how much of a fight it is. You got to fight for what you believe in.
Yeah, that's so weird to me because I always thought, just me, I always thought like I had the right to tell my kid when to go to school and not to go to school anyway. I didn't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I always just thought of public school as an option, but that you don't have to go to school. Just me.
Yeah.
If I didn't feel like putting my kid in school that day because we had something better to do, then he didn't go to school that day.
Mhm.
But as it turns out, he had very good attendance. So, but I don't know. It's a weird thing. They have to go to the Supreme Court to say whether your kid would be in school on a certain day or not. It just seems weird in itself to me.
Like I said, I don't know if I explained it right. So I just know it had something to do with the LGBTQ plus component. So I may be off in what I'm thinking. So, but
No, that's what they said. I mean, I know what it is, but um, yeah, that's
well,
fine. I mean, there's just some people that are very compliant, and they seem to think, I don't know what they think. They just think they're not in charge. They have to have a court say who's in charge, I
well,
guess.
well,
But
you remember? See, I don't know. I know when I was going to school, if my daughter was absent like 10 days, I got these letters, or she can't be absent more than 10 days in the semester, and so if she's sick, and or she could get held back from school, and then there are those unreported absences where they I don't know if they still do. They would send the truant officer breathing down your neck, wanting to know why your child isn't in school. I don't know. So
yeah. No, I'm sure it's reality. It's just not my reality. Like, my reality is if my son ever didn't like the school or I didn't like what was going on, then we just wouldn't go to school anymore. That was my reality. And that was a reality you used to be able to have, like in Illinois and here. So my reality is if they did something I didn't like, he didn't need to be there anymore. So it just was.
well, I ended up putting my daughter in high school. I put her into a charter school because she was getting threatened in high school, and I thought she would be safe just for the simple fact that she had been going to the same school district for until she was when she started third grade. So yeah, so sometimes you just people if find other solutions and just send them to a different school if you can. I know some people don't feel like they have that option, but so I don't know. It just man, I like to go back to the time when I was school. It seems so much easier. Things just seem so much cleaner and clearer not all this black and white, gray, or not all this gray area. And so,
Yeah, well, I don't know. I
wow.
don't know. I mean, stuff was happening when we were in school too. It's just accelerated and is progress for the progressives.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, well, and that's like kids today just can't read. I mean, it's getting. I mean, I remember learning phonetics and I learned to read pretty well, but you got some of these kids that just can't read. I uh after let's see, in 2023, and there's this little boy. He was in second grade, and I'm like, he couldn't read, and yet and now this last year he was in third grade, but it was like the whole pandemic didn't help. Kids weren't getting the education that they needed. They weren't getting the basics, the ABCs, math, reading, and writing. They don't do that anymore.
They do math, but writing has been eliminated because, again, the Governors Association made this determination that writing, as in actually physically using a pen or pencil and writing and printing in cursive, were removed as a um, federal recommendation for your state standards as part of Common Core, because they were told that in the future everyone will be on a computer. So why would you waste your time teaching people how to write when they won't need to write anymore? They'll be using computers. I mean, I was told this. I went down this road officially, like went to all the seminars and everything. So when I used to do the Stop Common Core. So math became algorithmic
Mm-hmm.
math because everyone needs to think in algorithms because the dystopic future will be about computers running everything. And so this is the way these people think. They have no respect for history. They have no respect for how about learning for the love of learning. Ironically, liberals are anything but liberal. They hate art, they hate science, they hate history, they hate philosophy, they hate logic, they hate all of it, everything. They hate Western civilization. That is the core of Western civilization, and obviously and religion. So they want to move on. They want to progress past all of that, where we're training people for their future, and their future is minus pen, paper, and pencil. I was told that directly to my face by the top levels of the Illinois Department of Education.
That's the reason why we need to get rid of DOE. But
So that's what they
yeah.
were preparing our, they call it 21st century learning. If you're a Lutheran, Lutheran didn't use the word Common Core. They called it 21st century goals for learning or 21st century learning standards, but it's Common Core. And
Yeah.
so that would be minus human skills and only computer skills. So that's why they removed all the humanities, and all kids have what we would call 2 periods of math class. And so, in order to have 2 periods of math class, because the language of computers is math, they had to eliminate other things. So they crammed it all into social sciences, as if humanity is a social science, and and uh doubled up on the amount of time kids do math. So, and they have to do algorithmic math rather than human math. So, oh yeah, I've been down this road.
I don't. I don't doubt it whatsoever. Yeah. Even when my daughter was in school back in the 90s, using keyboard. It's like keyboard used to be in my day typing, but then
Mhm.
they made it keyboard, and yeah, it
They're
yeah.
not even doing that right. Because I remember asking them, hey, when I learned how to type, you had a typing book and you open the book and then you do like each combination and force your brain to have like memory of where all the
Mhm.
keys are and everything. They don't even do that. They let the kids henpeck.
Yeah.
And I asked why, and they said, oh, well, because keyboards are going to go too. So why waste the time teaching them how to type? And that's true. We're already seeing that. They're training these guys to put the Neuralink in or whatever. That's basically what they're doing because they sat around with all these Bill Gates types, who, of course, Bill Gates paid for Common Core research with the Republicans Governors Association to come up with Common Core. And in other words, don't waste your time on things that make people human because you don't have a human future. That's basically what it is. So, and I just get so mad when parents are like, this kind of math, 2 plus 2 is 5 and stuff. I'm like, you guys aren't getting this, are you? You're just not getting it. You're not getting it. This is actually about humanities. But I lost that battle a long time ago. I don't talk about it much because it literally makes me cry because I love humanities. And then people would tell me I'm a liberal. Why are you here? You're a liberal. I'm like, because I am a liberal. I actually like humanities, dude. I like people. I like art. I like all that stuff. And if that makes me not a conservative, then I'm not. And so I've never called myself conservative ever again. After that nightmare of dealing with people who think that if you love art, fashion, and all that, somehow you're a liberal, and somehow being a liberal's bad. It's like, no, our founding fathers were liberals. What are you talking? So that's why I make the big fuss about the word conservative because I just couldn't take it anymore. So I just kept telling people, I'm not conservative. And then they're just like, but. And then they just listen to me instead of trying to do some purity test. You're not conservative enough. So that's why I do that because especially in Common Core world, you'd spend the whole time with them just saying, well, you're not a conservative. You need to learn math. This is job skill training. High school's job skill training. I'm like, yeah, well, unfortunately, your kids are being trained to not have a job because the
Right.
computers are going to be doing everything. What's your next question? Come on, keep going.
Yeah.
you know,
I remember back in, let's see, I was in junior high or high school, and Texas was doing something in the education, and they literally wanted you to decide by the time you were in eighth grade what you wanted to do. You could either go, let's see, you could either go, was it tech? There were two different types of diploma, more academic and more on the tech side, I think. I can't remember exactly what the two choices were.
right,
But
that's Common Core stuff.
yeah,
That's
yeah, and it was like,
Republican governor stuff.
yeah, and that was under Bush. That was under no, that wasn't under Bush. I take that back. That was in the 80s. Was it Mark White? I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, this all started in the 80s and it's not just Republicans, it's Democrats too. They think that school is about preparing people for a job. And this is a fundamental change in education. Our founding fathers, all the way through till the progressive era, would have never equated school with a job. You would apprentice for your job, but you would become a well-rounded, educated person at school. So this is a progressive thing that somehow learning things equates to a job. They're two different things.
Yeah, learning your
And
skills.
so because of that, we have little monsters who never learned anything beautiful like art. They never learned to think, being logic and philosophy. They never learned how to be a human. All they learned how to do is enter the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And this is wrong. It's just wrong. That's why so many people are putting their kids in what they call classical charter schools or whatever, and classical just means they learn the classics, which means the things I'm talking about, humanities,
Mm-hmm.
because they understand that, all these congressmen who are like, oh, there are people who only will hire people who have either homeschooled or gone to the classical charter schools, because they understand that if you hire someone who's classically trained, they will be a human being
Yeah.
that they can trust, they can leave alone and trust to act like a human being and not abuse their customers, and who will think because they learned logic and how to think,
Mm-hmm.
and who have a grasp of history, culture, and everything else more than they want to hire someone who's a trained coder or whatever. I mean, some of these tech giants, they're literally held hostage by their woke, brain damaged little geniuses who are geniuses who can do the job. But as humans, they're a complete failure and monsters.
Right.
Monsters that kill each other and hurt children and all this stuff. If these people had just had humanities, maybe they wouldn't be a monster.
Yeah. Well, do you think that's the reason why?
That's my point.
Do you think that that's the reason why President Trump, back in his first term, start plugging trade schools is to, because trade school is learning a
No, I
skill.
totally 100% disagree with Trump on education.
Mm.
It's the one point where I don't agree with him at all. I don't think that schools are where you train people for a career. I personally believe that if you went back to classical education, you would have less murderous monsters on the street. They'd be inspired by just being human
Yeah.
and seeing human accomplishment and beauty. And that's a very liberal mindset. It's not welcome in the conservative movement. That's why I'm not a conservative. I think that we're creating the monsters. There's nothing to love about being human in our schools. You're taught that you're horrible, that you cause slavery, that you kill people, that humans are bad, they're killing the earth, they're killing the animals, they're killing the water, the air, they're killing each other, they're horrible, they're sinful, dreadful creatures. They've never done anything good or beautiful ever in their entire history. And people that come out of these schools just learning math or whatever and no humanities don't know how to think. They don't love themselves. They don't love humanity. They don't love history. They don't love any of it. They're mentally deranged and little monsters.
Yeah. Well.
That's what I really honestly think. I remember being in school and like having art history and stuff, or even taking Latin. I took Latin in high school. I was so freaking inspired. I would get actual goosebumps come up on my arms when the teacher would talk, show beautiful architecture and talk about artists and the history and the medieval symbolism and all of that stuff. Goosebumps would come up on my arms. I was so fascinated by it. I was so inspired. It was so beautiful. Now, how do you become a monster if that's what you learn at school?
Yeah.
If you learn about how great humanity is, all the great things they've done. They're not perfect, but great things.
Well, think about all the buildings. You go back to just about any town in the United States, and I'll use an example. Corpus is one. They have they had a, oh my gosh, downtown, and it was so the history. I took a walk one day and just they had a theater, and but it wasn't being used, and they actually had a courthouse. They built a brand new courthouse, and the reasoning to let the old courthouse crumble was because of the asbestos. They had a the Vietnam Memorial again, uh, and they finally tore it down, and their excuse was the asbestos that was in there. But that was historical. Those were historical buildings that they just let go to rot, and so they could have an excuse to tear it down so they could put in whatever they wanted to. And the idea was that it was to go beautify Corpus or bring in people, and it was like, how can you do that? I mean, I would much rather, like when I went to Scotland and I was just the cathedrals and the chapels and all the buildings. It was just, you had a, let's see, Glasgow. Let's see, and Glasgow had the more modern buildings, but there's some really nice, like the Globe Theater, and there was some really nice, the architecture. Just looking, I'm not an architectural history. I don't know anything about architectural history, but just looking at the buildings, coming to California, the buildings, the kind of the Spanish flavor, it was just like, wow, this is just so neat. I'm in Texas, and I'm used to the board and you know anything by the coast, by the Gulf Coast. So it was just, it was nice. Everything was just, it was just, I don't know how to explain it, make it interesting, but I was just like, wow. So I'm kind of wondering what it's going to be like when we move, because our time is kind of short in California. But and unless something happens and we don't end up moving somewhere else, it's going to be interesting to see some other town, some other state, some how it is. So we're just.
Right. Well, I think it's getting better. I mean, even here, state by state, especially red states, are going with the school vouchers or some kind of school choice. And the kids who graduate from schools that give a regular, what they used to call liberal education, whatever you want to call it, are going to float to the top, way over the way over these wackadoodle kids that hyper focus just on math or whatever it is. Um, I don't have a problem with trade schools, but you have a choice to go to trade school. But the
Mm-hmm.
regular core education, I think, should actually be an education. Call me crazy. And so kids that come out of the classical schools and that, um, many, many, many corporate people are starting to invest in them because they understand that their best employees are not the ones that have trained for a specific skill or career path, but the ones that are well rounded. Because they're not little monsters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the little monsters. I mean, look at like Microsoft and stuff where the employees stood up and said, like, we're not doing this, and the whole board and everything has to like back down because the people are little monsters. They have no respect for anything. They're so selfish and horrible.
Oh, oh my
So it's
gosh.
like,
Oh, don't
it's
get
so crazy.
don't get me.
Like Twitter, like those people are monsters.
Oh, don't get me started on kids. I mean, I've been dealing with kids for the last 2 years in the school system, and we've been doing. And there's some that just, you try to tell them, you try to educate them, especially about gang signs, and they're like, "Oh no, I saw it on TikTok. It's okay." No, it's not. You don't understand what's being played out on TikTok. I had one kid, not was it this week or last week? Oh, this week I think. Yeah, it was this week. I had one kid. I was like, guys, I need you to pick up your this trash, and I said, please. I kept saying, please pick it up, please pick it up. And finally, one person, there was like three boys. It's like, it's not my trash. I said, I don't care. Pick it up. Someone needs to pick it up. Volunteer or I'll volunteer. I got to the point where it says, if you don't volunteer, I'm going to volunteer you. And this one kid turned around and said, that's what janitors are for. I saw red. I'm like, are you kidding me? No, 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 no. I just like, how dare you say that? How you little, my thought process was not very nice, but it was like, you little, yeah, I'm not gonna say it, It,
Well, yeah, it's going to turn around. I'm optimistic about it. I also think that people are going to figure out that the kids who are safest online and in this modern world, again, are the ones with a classic education because they're learning that there are things outside of being on a computer and AI and whatever, all that stuff that are a billion times cooler.
yeah,
If you don't know that there's things off the computer that are really amazing, then you're going to think the only amazing things that exist are machine generated. But humans have generated the most mind blowing, amazing things. And kids just don't know that because they're not taught it. They're also not taught that their brain is any good. They're taught only computers can come up with the right answer.
right.
Wrong. I mean, this is the thing that drives me bananas. So I don't know when, like, the Republican Party or just everyone in general starts sort of thinking that way. I never really thought about it until I started really digging into this Common Core thing. And one day it just hit me. This is what this is about. It's about the freaking computers. And that's why Bill Gates is paying for it. They don't want to invest in humanity anymore. It just hit me one day. I was looking at these Common Core standards and I'm like, why would you want kids to have these skill sets and not the ones that from the ancient Greek on was what your goal was? Like, why these? And it occurred to me they don't want humans. They took everything human out of this.
Yeah.
It's just the one that's what it is. That's my opinion. You know, other people can have another opinion. I know there are people who are just really strongly feel that schools are job training, and I totally get it. So I just want school choice. So people who think that schools should be job training, go for it. But that people who don't like me, that I don't have to, I can train my kid to be a human because I think it's that important, you know? So, um, you know, we taught my son can read cursive. He does have a hard time with writing it because it wasn't taught at school.
Right.
I made sure he could at least read it and um he can write cursive a little bit. But it's true. The kids now will almost never write. That's just reality. They'll almost never sit there with a pen and paper. Are they ever going to actually write a book again? Probably not. I mean, it is like true. What Common Core said is actually true, but just because something's true doesn't mean that's what you should do. Because I think that preserving human skills is that important. I think that people who don't know how to be a human are monsters. I just do. If you don't know how to be a human, why are you like, you can't possibly, I mean, these people don't even know what sex they are. They're so
Right.
dehumanized by the education. They don't know what's beautiful. They don't see anything beautiful. They feel horrible. They even feel horrible about their own bodies.
Yeah.
They've never probably seen beautiful sculptures and beautiful they don't even understand the human form, which anyone who goes to art class, you learn the human form and how beautiful it is. They see themselves as horrific, ugly monsters and they act it out. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so obvious to me, but I don't really talk about this kind of stuff very much because I know how mad it makes people.
Well, what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think that there's people that in a way are elite. What's wrong with them? The reason they're monsters is because somewhere along the line they decided being human's bad if you're an elite because then you actually care about this world. So it's sort of like I know I read a book of Victorian upbringing for elite children where they purposefully abused and beat and did horrible things to their children and they called that training them for people in their class for their elite ability to murder and kill and ruin, because when you ran, if you were landed aristocracy, you had to manage people in a very authoritarian way, I guess you'd say. And now we're all being subjected to that kind of education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, debate. Perfect, Mac Mama. Why do people fight all the time and can't talk to each other and debate legitimate questions? Because they were never taught to debate, because they don't have debate class anymore in high school. They literally don't know the form and function of how to have a thesis and argue it and debate it. They don't know how to do it. That's something you are taught.
Yeah, I took debate. I was in debate and speech were electives when I was in high school. So, and drama, speech, and debate.
Right. And if you don't do literature, you don't, most literature is based on archetypes and, sort of timeless struggle of humanity and timeless issues. You haven't read any of those? You don't know any. I mean, you're not a human. You don't know anything. You're just a infantile monster. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh
Right.
well.
I would argue that if you're, I mean, I'm not involved too much in church issues. Again, something I rarely talk about, but uh, I think if you were like a Catholic, traditional Catholic with Latin Mass and or a very traditional church, I think you probably have major advantages in being a human because you've learned not only, you know, ethics from your Bible, but you also have been introduced to other kind of classic education of a type. I know not all churches do that. The sort of the histiometry and um studying classic religious art and so on and so forth, but I know a lot of churches do. So that 100%, if I had the choice in between sort of classic church like that and something else, I would 100% go after that because it's just important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, well, that's why I'm not so popular in a lot of things. I just don't do the conservative thing. So at least Illinois style, man.
At this
I was
point,
a pariah sometimes.
I don't even understand what the word salad that people use, the definitions that they use for what is for a lot of this stuff. It's just, it's crazy. The other day, Thursday morning, for those who are listening, I actually broke down what is actually Zionism and what is fascist. You know, where does it actually come from? Because it's not what they're trying to tell you it is today. So they twist the
No,
they twist the words to make it, you know, so that you feel ashamed, you know, like you say, it's that shaming. um I, and like some of the kids just seem like they they just get this attitude. It's well, they feel like they're privileged in some ways, so it's like, I don't have to listen to you. So, I don't have to do what you say. We're not asking you to do anything that we wouldn't do, like pick up the trash, clean up the floor, make things nice and neat for the next person. Be a good human. Be
I was kind of laughing because, again, another topic no one wants to talk about with this Iran thing and that, with Judaism and that. I just wonder how some of these people that claim to be on the right or whatever, Um, this week was a bit of a boomerang when they found out that they have more in common with this clown in New York than they do any other candidate because of the sort of anti-Israel Palestinian thing and real and like I'll tell you these Iranian head operations brainwashing with Palestine and all that. The Iranians are really, 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 really good online with distorting history, distorting facts. I got in this big fight in a chat room when I mentioned to someone that Israel, the not the biblical Israel, but the modern political state we call Israel, which has the nation of Israel within it, but they also have people who are not Jewish and not part of the nation of Israel in there. So, I was explaining to them it was started by German missionaries who were Templars basically that bought the land from the Ottoman Empire. And so the oldest part of Israel is actually, I believe they call it Old Germantown. They don't call it Germantown, but German something, because they're all German buildings there. And I guess it's kind of cool or whatever. Oh, she got so mad at me. And I said, go look it up. Go look at the buildings. Are you saying I'm like making up these buildings? That's not what happened? It's like German Center, I think they call it. And the woman, you know what her answer was? I'm
Mm.
assuming it's a woman. I guess it could have been somebody else. She said, I like my history better than yours.
Oh, wow.
I said, go look it up. How can I make up a place that actually exists? And like, how could I make up a story and bills a sale that actually exists? I'm like, okay, like she's so triggered about like the whole Jewish thing that literally if she believes, then she doesn't like my history. I chuckled about that all day. Like, wow, man, that's like next level. Like, you can't even accept just a little snippet of information. And they were talking, it's like I was listening to some show and they were talking about Israel and Zionism and stuff. And I just think it's an interesting factoid that the modern state of Israel actually started as like a Christian German idea because they think that Jews are the chosen people or whatever, which there's a lot of controversy about that, depending on what kind of Christian you are, and that they were trying to create like a place for them in their so-called homeland, which again, that's controversial. So, but should I don't like your history. Oh man, I love that. That's definitely not debate club way to debate that. Is just say I don't like your history. Oh, that's a classic one. I
That's,
love it. It's so
that's funny.
funny.
That is funny. Yep. Yep. I don't like your history.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't know. Dynamax, all these like weird things about Israel and Elise and all this stuff. I don't know any of that. And I'm not going to travel to Israel to find out about it either. I just don't care. I don't, I mean, you would have to, how are you going to find that out? FOIA Israel? How do you FOIA Israel? Do they even have like Freedom of Information Act? How do you look up any of this stuff? Half the stuff floating around about Israel online, I think, Iranian propaganda or whatever, some kind of crazy stuff. I mean, plus Israel makes up propaganda about themselves just so you won't talk about them. It's so like freaking nuts. The Israeli deep state is like, I can't even understand it. But whatever it is, I don't know, man. I just feel like there's so much different disinformation that, you know what I mean? Like, can you trust any of it? I mean, physically, a German town being in the heart of Israel and finding old time actual paperwork about this group who started it, that I believe. seeing how Germany was moving people there, and you see the boats and the people on it, and it's old time pictures that have been around forever. I believe that too. I actually have a book here from my great great grandfather, and the book's Palestine. It's a picture atlas. And when you look, it's a beautiful book. It's, I don't know how old now, of the old Palestine with the Germans there. I have it downstairs on a bookcase. It's a real book. It was like a travel log or travel book like they used to have. So it would have been from Edwardian era, I guess. And I know that's real. It's been locked in a bookcase for 100 years in our family. I mean, that's not AI generated. I know what's real with that. So, I don't know, but some of the stuff I see online, I'm like, I don't know. You know?
Yep, I know.
Right, I have another book. It was like a series. So I had Palestine and Egypt. And we have I forget what the other one is. I think Italy. And my one side of my family, they were a little bit wealthy. They were like wealthy enough to do the grand tour, of like world travel at that time. The father was a lawyer and a judge at different times and a postmaster general. So they were in Missouri, and they were okay. They weren't super wealthy. They didn't have a mansion or anything, but the kids went to college, which was unusual back then, and they were quite. I mean, I have a lot of school books from then, and it's amazing, man, what these people are learning. And so they're educated people who did a little traveling. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool books. I'll never get rid of them.
Yeah, I know.
So, because they're real.
Yeah, I know that my mom and dad, we had a, let's see, when we were living in the valley in Texas, when I was growing up, there was they heard about a small town that the the schoolhouse was no longer functioning, and we went over there. We found some old books, old like Dick and Jane books, and some old textbooks, and took one of the desks. So it was basically people just went into the schoolhouse, and there wasn't anybody monitoring it, and we just took what we wanted. I mean, go back to those old textbooks and everything, and the history books and everything, and learn what was being taught back then. It was really weird, or really interesting. I say weird. I say weird in the sense that nowadays it's so off the beaten path that it kind of hard to wrap your mind against the differences in 50 years could be 50 or 60 years.
Sorry, someone just asked me what they're doing in Congress right now. And they're on the motion to proceed to the consideration of H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And so this is in the Senate, 50 nay and 45 yay. So once they open up the act, I think once they go to vote yes to consider the act, which right now they don't have the votes, then that's when Democrats can, I think they can demand the reading of the bill if they're actually going to make everyone stay up all night, which they threatened to do. And then after that, they like do the votorama. And then I think they have to vote to close all discussion on the bill, and then they vote on the bill. They go through a bunch of procedural votes and they vote on the bill. And then the House has to vote on the bill, this version. So there'll be, I don't know how many days that'll take. I mean, supposedly by the end of next week, isn't the 4th of July next Friday, I think?
Yep, next Friday.
Yeah.
Can you believe after Tuesday, half the day is already gone, or half of the year is already gone?
No.
Yep, half of
Uh
the year.
and yep. And then if the once the House votes on the bill, whatever change, hopefully they don't this bill is what the House will agree to vote yes on, or it has to go back and forth again. So, um, I'm assuming they're coordinating, and that whatever it is they're voting on here, the House is already more or less, they may be up there for their donors saying, I'm going to vote no. But that's just theatrics, because then they'll be able to tell the donor, I put in a really good fight on this one.
Yeah.
Better luck next time. So,
Yeah, this is, from what I understand, this is still they're the first phase because you got to remember they got once the Senate vote for the bill that goes back to Congress, and the Congress and Senate have to hash out both
right.
bills, and then before they come to one bill. So when do they go on break? Are they about ready to go on break?
Well, normally they'd be on 4th of July break, but the
Uh,
Senate at least agreed that they're not leaving until they vote their version of the bill out. And that's why I'm saying, for this to be even thought of being accomplishable by next Friday, then whatever version of the Senate bill is being voted on is a bill that the House is sitting in another room looking at and saying, no, don't pass this one. We don't have the votes for this one. Because they're going to need to pass in the Senate a bill that the House already knows
mm-hmm.
that they are going to agree to. And then that when they go to the full vote, the House has already agreed to it and the Senate's already agreed to it, so that they can rush it to Trump's desk by next Friday, the 4th.
Yeah.
So there can't be really that much gap in between the House and Senate with whatever is going to pass here, because they don't want to have to send it back to the Senate. I mean, they don't, in other words, they don't want to have to go through all this on the full floor vote. So, yeah. So that's why I'm saying I'm assuming the House is got input into what's happening
Yeah.
in the Senate. It'd be stupid to pass something out of the Senate that's miles away from what the House is willing to vote yes on.
Yeah. Yeah, they better. Hopefully. Well, I mean, but people also have to understand that we're not going to get everything we want. There's gotta, you get sometimes you gotta take baby steps to get, to get where you really want to be. So, it's called reconciliation for a reason. So we'll see how it goes.
Right. As long as the Republicans need upstate New York and certain areas of California, et cetera, to have their majority, by definition, you're always going to have moderates or rhinos or whatever you want to call them to have the number of people we need. And those guys, you have to feed those people something every once in a while to keep those regions willing to vote for Republicans. That's why the Trump coalition, which is really almost the old Democrat Party, let's be honest, like very JFK with Catholics and traditional union type people and so on and so forth, that kind of gets rid of the need to have rhinos. And sometimes I think that's why the Republican Party hates it so much, because the Republican Party could always blame their their problems on, well, we have to have those guys from California and New York or we won't have a majority. So it's just blowing up their whole system that they cultivated to have zero responsibility for anything they do, and they don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be mad if uh, California was given away. I mean, do you realize how many military bases are in California and how much the government funds California? I don't think people really realize that. You can sit there and talk about how immigration, whether illegal or legal, come into California and puts into the economy, but there's over 44 bases in California. So the military alone, the federal government alone through the military gives over nine. What I think I read $90 billion into the economy or something like that. So without the military, if we took out our military bases out of the California would be hurting worse than they are now. So, but
So Dearman asks, isn't reconciliation the way bills are supposed to be passed? And so no, the answer is that so reconciliation is a little rules-based gimmick where you can pass a certain type of bill that is moving the deck chairs around within the budget without expanding or they got all kinds of rules. And because you're doing the special reconciliation bill, you don't need to have 60 votes. You can have just a regular majority. And so, in essence, it's a bill that can be passed without the other party voting, is the way it kind of works out, at least in this era. And so that's why we're doing a reconciliation bill, but a reconciliation bill doesn't let you change the fundamentals of mandatory spending, like Social Security. You can change, like, you can nibble away at things around it. But that's why they have this parliamentarian who's supposedly an expert in this telling you, oh, this is a third rail thing you can't touch. These other things you can. It's a total gimmick. It's rules that the Senate created. It's the Byrd rule. So it was because Senator Byrd uh is somehow fundamental to this happening. And it was to break the gridlock. And it's like, I was thinking about this the other day. We're in gridlock all the time now with this 50-50 thing, which I think they engineer with these elections and redistricting, because then none of them can be held responsible really for anything because they can always blame the other side. But um, it's kind of a way of admitting that our government's broke and that the two parties can't agree on anything. And now that the Democrat Party's collapsed and is a radical socialist Islamo-fascist party, um, you gotta wonder how is our Congress gonna function in that? At what point do the real, like, actual American style type Democrats have to cross over to the Republican side? At some point they have to. It's just when you think about it, it's just so kind of scary, really, in a weird way. Like you're like, where's this going? Like, why are we always doing reconciliation bills? And you can only do one reconciliation bill per fiscal year. And so I forget the federal government's fiscal year ends in
it ends October.
like
I mean,
September.
September the 30th. A fiscal year always starts
Yeah.
October the 1st. So they have to do
So in
everything by.
theory,
They have to get everything done by
yes.
September 30th.
Right, and this isn't even the budget bill. At the same time that this is happening, you guys are seeing each committee, like the military committee, all the different committees are at the same time this reconciliation bill is happening. The committees are doing hearings like where they're calling in RFK Jr., they called in Pam Bondi, and they come in and they kind of have to justify their budget, like why I need a billion, zillion, trillion dollars. And that's because at the same time we're doing this reconciliation bill, we're doing supposedly going to have a real actual budget for the first time in 20 years. But that doesn't kick in till after next September, I believe. So it's like and we're at the end of the year as far as the government goes in 2 months, but they're working on one that's going to be after this year, the year after that. So
Did
a
you
year from now.
did you see that? I saw a clip of that when Pam Bondi was at the being gosh, what is that crazy lady with the purple hair? And she was being questioning, and Pam Bondi made the
Oh,
comment.
Is it De La Rosa or
I yeah, I
DeLosa?
think so. I mean, and she's like,
Something.
Pam Bondi, it was like, you're, oh my gosh, I laughed so hard. The woman, I mean, it's like, she's trying to save money, you yuts. And you're upset because she wants to consolidate the ATF with the, was it DOJ? And, oh, and the woman was just having a meltdown and asked,
Right.
she goes, I want an yes or no question, and and then she, spews her little, oh gosh, I can't remember. Tell me now, what makes? I was like, oh,
Hmm.
she was. It was crazy to sit there and watch her like she did that. It was, yeah,
Right. And she is one of the, I believe she is a on the appropriations committee
I think so.
for the
Yeah.
Democrats. And so they want to keep everything in those budget hearings to max amount of dollars. And they don't want us to do things like Pam Bondi wants to eliminate the ATF.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to merge certain departments of justice to get rid of DEI garbage and different things. Well, the Democrats think they're going to win in the midterm because historically they will. So they want that budget is going to be after, like, what will happen after the midterm, how much money in their minds the Democrats will have to basically impeach and thwart Trump for the last 2 years. So that's why. So I mean that's like, they have Maxine Waters was on the top of the banking committee. I mean, these people don't care how dangerous they are because these people are just the actors, the staffers are running the show. Obviously, I don't think that Maxine Waters knows how to balance a checkbook.
Well, she has someone else to do it for her, but we have been told in the drops that a lot of uh, these organizations, these agencies are going to go away. They are either going to be absorbed or they're going to be disbanded. I mean, President Trump is working towards it. Like the Department of Education, and there's another one that's been talked about that is going to go away eventually. I can't remember offhand. Um, I can think of at least two organizations that are going to go away. But when I saw that about Pam Bondi wanting to put the ATF or merging it with oh gosh, the DOJ, because she says this only makes sense. Guns and what was it? Guns and
Trying to put it into like some drug thing.
yeah, go hand in hand. So it was.
DEI, drug enforcement, and make that go together. Yeah. Well, that's the thing though, but they don't want their machine, I mean, basically the federal government is a Democrat machine. It's, obviously been built to wield their power, not the Republicans. The Republicans, quite frankly, don't want power. I mean, I don't know how else to phrase it. They don't want responsibility. They don't want power. They only send, strongly worded letters. Criminal referrals never happen, even when they're in so-called power. They don't know how to wield power. They don't want to. They're uncomfortable with it. And except for Trump, man. Trump is hardcore. So they're, I think just Trump makes them nervous because he's, you know, forthright, and you give him the power, he uses it, and they just never seen that before. So, it's just part of the psychology, I guess, of being a conservative is that you are very shy. You don't want power, actually. You want all the power to go away. Um, you don't, you feel, I feel wrong forcing people to do things. I don't like it because I believe in individual power or individual rights and stuff. So I'm very uncomfortable. Like when Trump goes whole hog, I'm kind of like, eh. It's kind of like someone Dearman, I think, said, "Can't the Senate change their rules?" Why, yes, they could. They could get rid of the filibuster. They can keep the filibuster. They can change how many votes you need for what kinds of bills and different things. But I think, first of all, some of them, I think, actually respect the traditions of the Senate because they're just taught to respect it. And there's, tradition. But I think more than anything, they're afraid to break the machine because the senators have a great machine. They go in there, some of them broke. They come out with trillions of dollars and no show jobs for the rest of their lives to enrich not only them, but three or four generations of their family. Um, they seem to kind of steer clear of pitchforks and torches. They have all these arcane rules and stuff that they can, like, oh, it's the parliamentarians' fault. They can come up with an excuse for every single shortcoming every time they rip the people off and go in favor of big business or whoever their donors are. And I think they're very superstitious about um keeping in place what people like Senator Byrd, and we know all about him, have constructed to protect the Senate from any responsibility to the state, to the people, to the House of Representatives, to the president. They have an excuse on hand for every circumstance of why they can't do something to benefit the people. So that's my answer. Um, and I'd be very nervous too if they just started changing rules. It would be very hard to predict how changing rules. That's why at the beginning of my show, I read a whole list of things that Trump's done that needed doing, but it's going to make the future a very different place. Having a fully empowered president is something that we've not had arguably since Watergate. But I'm going to say, a lot of the presidential powers were also taken away because of the Civil War and yada, 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 many reasons. And Trump's undone all that, where he's almost in a Washington state where he's like the general and commanding all of the government. Well, when a Democrat becomes president, don't think they're going to reverse it. They're going to keep that so-called imperial presidency, which is actually what it's supposed to be. And it's going to be very different. And we're going to be pulling our hairs out. And I'm just saying it because I think it's true. We're going to be like, wait a minute, I thought the courts could stop this. Oh, yeah, Trump undid that. The courts can't stop it. So this is a revolution of a sense of our government. It's changes that are not going to be unchanged by anybody because you're making being the president much more attractive than it used to be, where you went in the Oval Office, the proverbial, you go in the Oval Office, they turn the lights off, the projection screen rolls out of the ceiling, they show you the real Zapruder film, the lights come back on, and they say, "Any questions, Mr. President?"
Yeah. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting and exciting, I think.
Well, yeah. Um, it's something that everyone's hoped for to restore the Constitution, but I'm just telling you that things that sound really good, like restore the Constitution, sounds really good, but it's a little scary to actually do it. I'm not saying that I don't want it done. I'm just saying it makes me a little nervous, but it's the world we should have been living in and like the real timeline. But somewhere we got put on this weird timeline where we pretend like we have a constitution that's a certain way and actually it isn't. And now we're back on the real world, realville timeline, and it's a little scary.
Well, I think change is scary for a lot of people. I mean, if you I mean, because first of all, you're not used to it, and it's it goes back to kind of the fear of the unknown. How is this really going to work? I mean, can
Yeah.
you imagine having to if you can actually do something that you really love doing a job you really love, as opposed to taking anything you can get just to put food on the table. Doing something that you really enjoy, that you were actually geared to from the beginning, instead of you know a job shouldn't have to necessarily feel like you shouldn't have to dread going to work, getting up and going to work the next day. You should be able to enjoy going to work and enjoy what you're doing. And so many people don't do what they want to do because either A, they just don't feel like they can make a living at it, or B, it's because they're conditioned to believe, oh, you have to do this to be successful. As opposed, and the definition of success for some people could be different. Some people it is making money and living a luxurious lifestyle. For some people, it's just being modest, having a modest, paying the bills, but having enough to go on vacation. So, but when you got people who look down at you because you don't think of the ways that think of success the ways that they do, and it's just I want to I enjoy I don't like yelling at kids, but I actually like being around the kids. Surprise, surprise. I'm used to being in an office, working in an office, uh, and working with numbers and working with things, but the thing is my pocketbook doesn't like being part-time, so that's the difference. So it's just gonna be it's I think about that, though. I think about being able to do what I want to do without having to worry about, is this going to be, am I going to be able to put gas in the car for the next 2 or 3 days? So,
Yeah, we shall see. I personally feel I try to like believe in this golden age, but it's hard for me to see. So I don't. I'm just on the ride with everybody else. I personally don't believe we're gonna have a golden age right away, but that's not because Trump's not doing his job. I just think the AI thing is really gonna put a wrench in stuff for a long time. So I'm still in kind of apocalyptic mode, uh saving everything I can because I'll be dying relatively soon, and I have a son here, and so I'm trying to do whatever I can with that situation. And yeah, I mean, I was just told I'm not going to get to retire, so that's another part of it. So if I'm not going to get to retire, that changes things a lot.
yeah.
So I I have some money, but it would be really hard to retire without Social Security for all of Gen Xers, and I don't know what we're all gonna do, but we'll fight about it. We're gonna fight back. But Gen X just got told, "Sorry, you're never retiring." That's we spent
Especially,
all the money in the Middle East basically on useless wars, and not only did you fight those wars, but guess what? You're never gonna retire.
well,
Okay.
unless you've got stocks, and if you play the market. I mean, I don't have any money in the market, so I pretty much used up all my money for that. So we'll
Right, I
see.
have a retirement, but I mean, most people depend on a retirement and whatever Social Security combined, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know with the inflation the way it's going to stay for a while and just everything. You just don't know. I mean, it could be a golden age, it couldn't be, but I'm not like I'm ever since I heard the Social Security thing last 2 weeks ago or whatever, I'm like, okay, you're telling me you're not going to retire. So I'm on that mode now. I just totally changed all of my investments and my 401k and everything in my life based on that. So they'll probably say in a year, oh, the Social Security, what do they call it, the safe box or whatever they call it, is fixed. Everything's fine. Well, okay. So for a year I did something different. It isn't gonna hurt me. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So I'll just take the cautious route until I hear otherwise. Gen X isn't retiring. So we shall see. Be a lot of social. We're going to make them pay. If they ruin our lives like that, we will make them pay because Gen X is fighters. So they will rue the day they didn't let us retire.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, they wouldn't let us retire yet. Now that they're Doge has gone in and find the fraud, and now they're instead of taking that money and putting it where it belongs, they are people are fighting it. I mean, yeah, it. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, we talked about this last week about Social Security,
Mm.
about how, I mean, they've been talking about Social Security all the way back in the 70s and 80s, being gone by the 2000s, and that's the reason why we got the IRAs. You have to have the retirement because you're too stupid to be able to figure out how to save the money for yourself. So they pretty much have herded us into having IRAs and not being able to manage our money ourselves. So it's
Right,
another.
but even if you manage your money yourself, they've destroyed every vehicle of savings for the average person.
Oh
That's
yeah.
just reality.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But
People say, all kinds of things. Well, you shouldn't depend on Social Security. But there's no other, like, people used to be able to put money in those money market funds and that, or even a savings account. Now they charge you to have a savings
yeah.
account at a lot of banks. They've
Well,
destroyed every vehicle of wealth for an average person on purpose.
I remember when the Treasury bonds came out, and I don't know what happened to all of them. Uh, Part of it is I won't get into what happened to some of them, but I should have had like 10. I only found one of my bonds because they were like, for, let's see, the face value was what, 100. I paid 50, but the face value was they were 30-year notes, bonds that were supposed to be worth $100 after 30 years, and I had like 10 of them. I had like 20 of them, but some of them got used. But I only found one, so the 30 years is almost up now since I bought them, and I need to go find that one again. I misplaced it, I think, and go find out what it's worth. But it should be worth at least $100. So that's how those savings bonds came about too. They were supposed to be in your CDs too. So
Right, no one talks about any of those anymore because they've all been ruined. So the new gimmick is that, so apparently, so the Biden administration rolled over the debt into short-term bonds because the world's so afraid to take a 20-year bet on America or a 10-year bet. And so now Bessent's trying to roll that short-term bonds into long-term bonds to give us some breathing room, and the world ain't buying. So that's a big major problem. And uh, yeah, and so when the House doesn't really cut money, or when the Congress is not actually really cutting money, that's putting our entire currency in a bind because no one's buying the bonds. And then the long and short of it is that Besant said that their solution to that is the stable coin. and that the stable coin will be backed by US bonds. This is what we're going to. Our currency's so toxic that we're replacing it with a stable coin. So it's just like we're in a world nobody understands. Maybe I'm going to have a stable coin, awesome retirement because of the stable coin. This is like, it's sort of like a bucket to put all your debt in and pretend like it doesn't exist for a while until your golden economy is producing so much income you could pay down the stable coin. It's like a, I don't know, I wouldn't even, it's not a gimmick. It's, I don't know what you call it, but I'm trying to understand it. I've been spending a lot of time on this stablecoin thing, but as best as I can tell, that's what it is. And he's pretty excited about it. Like it's the answer to all of life's questions. Like it's just the answer to everything is that we could park all this debt in the stablecoin. And he might be right because no one else can figure out how to fix all of this in a world where Congress won't cut one penny.
Yeah.
So, you know, uh, I guess we're going to find out, you know? No other country can figure out what to do. It's not just our debt nobody wants. Nobody wants anybody's debt. They're putting the money in gold and mining concerns, real estate. These hedge fund guys said now they've bought up all the plumber business and the roving eye of these hedge fund managers and stuff, just soaking up every asset that's not currency based. So, yeah, I mean this whole Keynesian thing or whatever, just let's just say total failure. Modern monetary theory, total failure. So I don't know. It might be awesome, guys. Maybe that's why we're going to have a golden era because all this debt's just magically going to go into like some kind of blockchain somewhere. I don't even understand this stuff. So don't listen to me. I just listen to what people say. Go listen. But what? So he did an interview with I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was an interview with Miranda Devine. Miranda Devine has a YouTube channel. I think it's called Going Rogue, maybe. I forget. But anyway, she has a YouTube channel. I think it was that interview where he's trying to explain to her how all the stable coin, they can sell bonds off the stable coin somehow. And I just puzzled. I'm like, my brain is melting. I don't understand. So I think it was that interview. But I'll find out. I'll go check and remind me to let you know because I'm probably going to look at it again because I want to understand what they're doing. So, all right. Well, I got to go, guys. My mom's standing here. The dogs are running around my feet.
Okay. Well, you have a good weekend, the rest of your weekend.
You too.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye. Maybe
Bye.
next week things will look up.
Yep.
So, anyway, guys, that was 80s Erin and this is on the wing of the prayer. There's not much I can do. I only have 6 more minutes to go. But, guys, I want to give some fun and interesting news. I was telling Thursday morning. I was telling Chris Corey that I actually tried to do live from Rumble, so I'm almost there. I'm almost gonna figured it out. It looks like I'm definitely gonna have to do OBS. That's I don't know how it's gonna work on my system, but I'm going to work on it in the next few days when I have time and have my facilities together and. I'm going to try to start doing live stream on. I can do through YouTube, but the problem with trying to do it through YouTube, it won't because what I'm doing is I'm sharing my Zoom, and through Zoom I'm sharing my scripture reading, and whenever I try to do that, YouTube doesn't like it, or the my YouTube live stream cuts it off. And I mean, if it's just me sharing the Zoom, it's okay. But the moment I share through Zoom, then it decides, oh, oh, you're unstable, so I'm cutting you off. So I'm going to try. I want to try to do live stream through Rumble. I actually got it on YouTube, but I'm sorry. I did my live stream on Rumble, and I actually had a couple of people that jumped in while I was live streaming. I think they jumped off because when they didn't see a live person on there, it they anyway. So, but I got it on my Rumble channel. Here is my Rumble account again. So I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting to where I want to be. It's just gonna take a little bit more time. I'm not too thrilled about adding another app on my computer, but I just want to. I just want to. I really do. I want to do a live streaming. So, and I thank you guys for your support. I thank you. Clifford was there Thursday, so he heard the announcement, and I wanted to say thank you for your support. So, I'm putting my links before it is time for Dano to come in. And Dano, if you want to pop in and say hi and what have you, you can.
Hey, Deb.
Hey, Dano, how was your week been?
Weekend's been pretty good. Been an exciting week. Lots of stuff going on. How you been?
Oh,
What's
okay.
new in your world?
It's too much. I mean, I think there's just too much. Of course, but I'm just not seeing a lot of the information that's coming out that a lot of people are. Of course, it's like Facebook has one narrative, and that's it. And after 2 or 3 days, it goes to one narrative, and then it backtracks, and so it's just.
It's interesting how all these different platforms have their own unique algorithms, right?
Exactly. You can't.
Basically, they're designed to give you what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Which may sound good, but it puts us all in individual echo chambers pretty quick if we're not aware.
Well, just about, I mean, think about it. Everybody was so excited with the bombs going off, and then all of a sudden they're sitting there, the media is saying, "Oh, it didn't happen the way he said it did," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And then and I mean, from what I understand, Adam Schiff had actually said that what happened was a good thing. Did you see him? Did you see his little speech? That it was. It was. I can't tell you exactly what his wording was, but it was. It was.
I didn't. I'm not looking at the day to day. That drives me nuts. I'm sort of just trying to keep above the clouds, so to speak. But I can imagine as all this sort of resolves itself, it's going to be nonsensical even to those that have script, right? That's why a script is so handy, so we can use it after the fact and say, okay, what did we just watch, or what are we watching, right? I don't know. That's my take on it.
I don't know. I'm bored. I'm bored with this movie. I mean, you have these
Oh yeah.
You have these moments where, oh boy, everything everything we're halfway expecting is starting to happen, and then but it's like, gosh, can we drag it on anymore? I mean, I'm just.
Well, here's my summary. If we think Q was about politics, we missed the point. A great awakening is humanity rising above deception, and I don't know the truth on the politics. I just know they were all lying, and none of them had our interest. And so I can fast forward that, and hopefully, if humanity chooses to stay engaged after we're awake, as we have been, we have a chance to sort of steer the ship where it was on cruise control before that. So that's where I see it. Politics, yeah, it's, you study history. Imagine being any one of those times on a day-to-day basis. It only makes sense because we're reading after the fact, So I personally try not to get caught up in it day to day. Some of that's important, though, as we see things to try to measure and mark for sure.
Right. It's kind of weird because I don't know if you heard earlier I was telling Erin about when Pam Bondi went up to the, I think, the Appropriations Committee or the Budget Committee, and that Lasario, crazy lady with the purple hair trying to be hip, or unless it's just a wig. Anyway, I mean, Pam, I mean, she's like, it was like, how dare you want to cut the funding to ATM? I mean, you're putting everybody in harm's way. And she's just saying, Pam Bondi said, we're going to move ATF into the DOJ. And I'm thinking, okay, first of all, my first thought was, oh, we were told, and I've repeated this, we were told that three-letter agencies were going to be either absorbed. We're going to go back to 3 agencies, and they were either going to be absorbed or go away. Well, we got to start. They're trying to get, well, no, the IRS. They're trying to get rid of DOE. They're trying to get rid of IRS. And if you absorb ATF with the DOJ, and you get some of these other agencies, I mean, I tell you one thing. I tell you what one of the agencies that need to go away is the clowns. In my opinion.
Yeah, it's honestly, a lot of these agencies aren't even governmental, right? If you say IRS, like that's how bad things were.
Mm-hmm.
It's above my pay grade. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be pulled through, but we're aware of it. We should be watching it, and we should be, trying to make sure things are good. And if it's not, we should be pulling it to account, right? Putting the feet to the fire. So it's all good, but it's past the time. We got to get on with the Saturday Night Vibe show.
Yep.
Got a good one for you guys.
All right, you have a good one, and talk to you next week.
All right, relax, Deb. Have a good week. We've been on the battlefront for a long time, so keep that in mind. It's okay to take breaks.
Yeah.
But have a good week. See you next time, Deb.
All right.